Hi there, my name's Keith Scott-Mumby and I'd like to talk to you about why prosperity is important for you. It's important for everyone, but it's important for you. Now, you might be wondering why a doctor would be getting interested in money and finance and prosperity at all. You'll see from my credentials, I'm an MD. Well, it's really very simple to answer. I would say that finance and money is the number one stressor that people meet. And stress, as you know, is a big concern for doctors. Any intelligent MD knows that stress is probably the number one killer. It's a very serious problem indeed. And although I'm not one of those sort of super rich, squillionaire cosmetic surgeons from California, I do have a medical interest in this and I do know what I'm talking about. I know a few things which I'm going to share with you. I'd like to point out a little curiosity which I noticed over the years, which is the similarity between the words poor and poorly. So being poor and not having enough money is quite like being poor. It's a certainly non-optimum and rather stressful condition, as I said. And even more curiously, the opposite of that is that the words well and wealthy sound quite similar. So it's as if this thing is built into the language, you know, that even in our language we recognize the health importance of good finances and prosperity. Now, I want to say something important right at the top here, which is that wealth, or prosperity anyway, is certainly not just a question of quantity. A lot of people think of it as like how much you've got. But really, it's actually more a question of flow, whether you've got healthy flow and balances. And again, there's a kind of medical connection here. I think of that like blood flow, you know, healthy blood, bringing oxygen and nutrition to the tissues. That's what your money flows are like. And the lymphatic flow, which takes away toxins and circulates fluids and so on. All this is very important to your health. When you're insolvent, I think of it rather like a chronic hemorrhage, you know, bleeding, just slowly draining away vitality and life energy. And of course, if you've ever been seriously insolvent, you'll know that that's what it feels like. Debts eat away at your life and your good feeling and ultimately will eat away at your health. So I think of debts really a bit like cancer, you know, they eat at our tissues. In fact, heavy debts I often liken to swimming with crocodiles. You know, you're quite likely to lose an arm or a leg. You have to be careful. But the positive side of this is the same, which is that to have positive financial health flow, which is what I mean by prosperity. Okay, I'm not equating it exactly with being rich. Prosperity is good. If you want to push it further, that's wealth. But prosperity means that quality of living where we have sufficient, we have plenty, we have more than we need, we have an abundance without necessarily needing to be, you know, stinking rich like the Warren Buffetts of the world. It's important to us, and it is a healthy situation. And what I found is that people who are in a poor state financially, they get very stressed, as I said, and they start to behave badly. That's when people get desperate. And when people get desperate, they often get dishonest. And interpersonal behavior degenerates too. There's a famous old saying, when poverty comes in the door, love flies out of the window. I don't know if you've heard of that, but certainly there's no quicker way to wreck families and marriages than to be in financial dire straits. I remember reading a book by the British writer George Orwell. He's the man that wrote the famous book 1984. But he also wrote another book called Down and Out in Paris and London. And this was his experience living through grinding poverty in these two cities. This was back in the 20s and 30s of the last century. And he tried to make a living as a writer, and he was doing reviews, hardly earned anything. So he ended up washing up in hotels and still barely made enough to live. And the thing that makes a lasting impression from this book is how badly people behave when they're right down at the floor. I'm sure none of you watching this are in that condition or would ever want to be. I'm simply making the point that, you know, finance and stress go together, financial health and good health go together. It's also, it's just important for us all. I mean, even if you live on a tropical island in the world today, money is still an issue. You can't escape it. It's woven into the fabric of the Western world. So it is important to you. And one of the things I teach is that prosperity is a system. It's knowledge. It's what you do. It's a path. It really has very little to do with this fluffy state of mind. And trust me, you need to know a lot more than just simply the idea of magnetizing money. Hey, I've got a very dear friend. Every time I mention the law of attraction and say it's not a law, it doesn't work, not 99% of the time, and that's not therefore not a law, she says, oh, it works for me. I once wanted $10,000 and I asked the cosmos for $10,000 and within a week there was a check in my doorstep. Great. But the other part of the story for this lady is that she's gone bust and they've lost 5 homes, and their final home now they've surrendered to the bank. They're still living there, but the bank has foreclosed on it. So what does that say about the law of attraction really? And this is the point. People have these stories, you know, how they magnetize some money, but you've really got to look at the overall in a person's life. And the truth is, in this day and age, a lot of us are not doing well. Listen, I have a lot of friends who are millionaires, and a lot of them are really stressed. You know, they're just stressed at a higher level. Trust me, it is bad news, and it's going to make you very sick indeed and lower your feeling and your emotional tone to lose $10 million. All right, you might still have 30 million left, so other people will be envious of you. But actually the stress is just as bad as somebody struggling to make ends meet. It is important that you learn this methodology. I have a saying which is that wealth is a path, prosperity is a path. You have to walk it, you have to take the steps. It's a skill, you have to learn what to do, how to plan the route and how to follow it. And if you don't know, you're going to be in trouble, because worldwide now finances are collapsing. Anybody but an idiot or a super silly optimist must be aware that we're in trouble. The world economy is going sideways at a great rate of knots. The welfare system is collapsing, so don't rely on the state to look after you. There are far too many people now sponging on welfare and the state system, and that doesn't include people who are not sponges, like the retirees. A lot of them are losing their retirement fortunes and so on. It's bad news for us all, so it's more important now than ever that you learn this process of prosperity, that you acquire this skill. It's a teachable skill. It's a learning skill. We have to get rid of the fluff and just focus on what really works. And that's why I've created for you this prosperity workshop. I will share with you what you need to know, how you go about this thing, and what you can do to create the prosperity that you'd like in your life. It's essential if you're going to live the long, the full, healthy, and enjoyable life. Okay, so join me in these workshops. I'm sure you'll get a lot from them, and you'll see more videos in this series that will share some ideas with you, and I look forward to seeing you in one or more of these workshops. Thank you very much.